taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Augmented Reality podcast for July 21st, 2018. My name is Asheninity, powered by Pure Hype as always, and I'm always here with Cybsidian, and I'm again today. How are you, sir?
Good. You can actually throw in Cyberpunk into the title because we will be talking a little bit of Cyberpunk. It's just we couldn't really name the thing that we're talking about in Cyberpunk without setting off a bunch of YouTube Autobot flaggers. And that's an insult to the Autobots from the Transformers universe. So, today we're talking about this very interesting article that came out recently where CDPR was talking about how in the fictional world of Night City, controls on weapons, or another way to say that will trigger auto sensors, is factored into the world of Cyberpunk. So that it's kind of a really cool thing, and there's not a whole lot to really kind of like talk about other than the fact where it's
kind of a lore discussion as opposed to a news discussion.
It's a heavy lore discussion. So please, in the comments, let us know what your what your thinking is around this particular aspect of the game, because it's a real cool thing, and I like that they're starting. And by the way, we did call this. They're getting more into the lore of the world, and they're really starting to expand upon it now that people are interested. Now that people are interested in paying attention, they're now talking about divulging a lot of stuff on the lore. We're going to be seeing this basically from now until the game launches, where they're every couple of weeks or like once every 2 weeks, we're going to get a discussion or an interview where they talk about some aspect of the lore or some aspect of the city or some aspect of the gameplay, and then the news sites are going to talk about this like crazy, and then we're going to get another one. As soon as the last stuff kind of dies down, we're going to get another one, and then we're going to get another one, and sometimes it's going to be 2 or 3 in a week or two. Other times it'll be like one big one for a while. So recently they talked about the nudity, and they talked about the how their choices with the FPS system were going. So they've kind of reiterated on the FPS thing, but as far as the nudity went, they went full bore into that, and really discussed that quite loudly with several different outlets and whatnot. And now we see that they're going into the gun thing, and moving on past that, we're probably going to get into vehicles at some point in the future. We're probably going to get into various factions. We're going to start hearing about them. These things will come in and around our next visual update, which we're expecting something at Gamescom. Gamescom is huge. It's huge in Europe. This game is very popular in Europe. I suspect that it as far as per capita of gamers, not per capita of people, but per capita of gamers, I suspect strongly that this game will actually do better in Europe than it will in America, and it'll probably do as equally well in Asia. But yeah, it's more of their cultural kind of things brought into kind of this kind of into this game. So there's a little bit more there for others, which is why there's such a strong community of Mad Queen included, of people who are excited about this game in Europe. This is really one of these things where the cyberpunk lifestyle really appealed to Europeans a little bit more than it did to Americans. It's still very popular between the two, of course, but it's something that's that cool little extra step. So
that is interesting, especially considering it's set in America, but the game is being produced by a European developer, obviously. And so we're going to see a lot of European cultural influence in there as well. So very cool.
Yeah, and it's I'm really excited to see how this will continue to grow and shape and form and whatnot. So these kind of articles are going to be great. Keep your eye out for them, and always let us know. Join our Discord and ask us about these questions. We're going to start ramping up our lore series. We haven't really done very much on it. But we are going to start to cover more of the stuff within Cyberpunk, and we haven't made an official announcement, but basically we want to hear what you want to hear about, and then we'll try and cover that. So we'll have like some polls and stuff. So please, yeah, hop on our Discord and kind of keep your eye on it, and we'll be talking about that kind of stuff coming in the future. But I think we're probably gonna wait until Gamescom just because it is so massive, and I suspect strongly we may not get gameplay, we may not get a brand new trailer, but what we will get almost 100% is new information on the world, especially revolving around the lore. This is what the Europeans will want to see almost as much as gameplay. So everybody wants to see gameplay, obviously, but in Europe with Gamescom, I suspect that they're really going to focus down on some of the story aspects and some of the lore aspects, and really, really just hit that hard and hit that out of the park. That's going to be kind of their go-to next goal, so to speak.
Okay. And our Discord server, you can find the link in the description below, as always. And if you're listening live this morning, please say hello in the live chat. Send us any questions and comments you have there as well. We'll read and respond to as many as we can throughout the podcast. And so good morning and hello to Old Man Manson and Frost Hypes, D-Doctor, Dancing on the Ashes, and Megan. Welcome, one and all, to the podcast, and we love seeing the conversation in the chat, so please keep that good and active. So, our main news stories today, we've got stuff about Fallout 76 and stuff about No Man's Sky, which I cannot believe we are actually still talking about No Man's Sky, but it's actually some interesting stuff to talk about there.
Well, it's actually called No Man's Sky next, and so there's so much to talk about in this. And it's one of these things where I was like about a year or so ago, I was like, basically, like, I never want to hear about this game again. It has failed in every possibly conceivable way. They added vehicles and base building, and I was like, there's in order for them to make me remotely interested in playing this game, they would have to have fully functioning multiplayer, factions, the ability to set up, a network of bases and places for you to basically like camp out at, heavily like increase the multiplayer functionality, probably add a third person aspect to the game, add the ability to customize your character, and then and there were a whole bunch of other little things like increased weapons, increased worlds. Like not every world needs to be a round world. Like it's a sci-fi world. We can have floating like artificial bases. We can have ring worlds. We can have like broken worlds where the world's been shattered and you get to kind of explore a shattered world. They need to have this added emphasis on the universe and the world, for everything that you could possibly imagine or think about, like this really, really expansive growing world. That's what it needs for me to even consider playing this game again. Well, guess what? They added all of those things in this new expansion. From what we're hearing, I haven't had a chance to play it yet, but from what I'm hearing, yes, they have indeed added all of those things. So
Interesting. So
I am shocked.
So this is called No Man's Sky Next. It's an expansion to the original game.
It's as far as I understand, and I've double checked it this morning. It's basically a free expansion to the base game. So you're going to be able to update it and get all of this in one go. If you play in the base game, you don't need to buy this thing, as far as I know. And yeah. So now, mind you, I uninstalled that game a long time ago, and I have not considered reinstalling it until the trailer came out this week. So yeah, this is one of these things where it's like, okay, this is much better. And strangely enough, this is actually a lot more closer as far as like the gameplay and the exploration and kind of how that works. It's a lot more like what I think 76 is going to be like than what it was originally, which was basically like this very, very light version, but very beautifully aspected Minecraft, just with like never-ending recycled content. But but yeah, no, this is supposed to be free, and this is supposed to be a like they've added a whole bunch of new monsters and animals and creatures and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, so this is gonna be one interesting ride, and I'm very curious to know if, because still the game, the original that came out, has still left such a bad taste in my mouth that I am still very hesitant to even give this a second try. So I want to hear from the community. Are you guys interested in having another look at this game, or was the blatant lies and the blatant misuse of our trust as a gaming community, was that so egregious that you just don't want to hear about it ever again? So this is what I really want to know.
Personally, I don't think I'll be picking it up. I feel like it's taken 2 years.
No, you'll be playing my version of it.
I'll try it out if it's if you pick it up, I'll try it out. But it feels like it's taken 2 years to finally roll out the release of this game.
Which just goes to show how
2 years. Can you believe that? Like,
how was it? I think it was Sony. How much Sony pushed this game out the door before it was ready? Developers need to, retain as much control as humanly possible for their titles as they possibly can. Stop giving publishers control over your company. It's just terrible in so many aspects. It's just terrible. So,
I didn't realize that was part of the problem.
Oh yeah, it was very clearly and loudly commented several times that this just simply was not. This just was simply put out way too soon.
Cool. Yeah. I mean, not cool, but yeah, good answer. And I agree with Megan's comment in the chat that they shouldn't have released the game until it was at the state it is now. Yeah, makes sense. I mean, if this was a brand new game that was coming out right now, I would be very, very interested in it. But because of the poisoned history of it, it's lost its appeal.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's one thing to roll out a game and have it not be successful and be like, okay, we did something wrong. We made a mistake somewhere. Let's see if we can, kind of like what The Division is doing. They made some mistakes with the release of the first game. They've built the second game now, and it looks interesting. It looks like they've gone back to the drawing board and said, okay, let's fix where we went wrong. But I mean, when it's a case of just blatant false advertising and lies, when you lose trust in the developer, kind of like the EA situation, when you lose trust in the developer or the publisher, that's a problem. You can forgive a game for just being bad, but not, or I can anyway. I can forgive a game for, okay, there were some missteps made here, wasn't a great game, but I'll still look at future titles from that developer because, okay, they tried something, it didn't work. But if it's like, this game is going to be X, but it's absolutely not, and then they, you feel deceived and lose that trust. I think that's a big problem, and I think, it used to be that people have short memories, right? Well, I think with the age of the internet, people's memories are getting longer, and so I think that's a big problem. I really don't think that companies. I think they need to be more careful about that kind of thing, or they're gonna start hitting it. They're gonna start getting hit on their bottom line, and that's a big problem. But if it's a bad company, I don't really mind. They get hit on the bottom line.
Yeah, so I mean, it's pretty, it's one of these things where it's like,
yeah, it's well. Let us know in the chat if you're going to be checking it out. We might check it out. I don't know that we'll do any content on it, but we might take a look at it. All right, so let's move on to more interesting and exciting news. Fallout 76, and somebody discovered something that suggests somebody discovered something. That sounds a little too hype.
Noticed.
So
Yeah,
it's kind of so there's some I don't want to call it speculation because there is this is based on something that was found in the release trailer, but it's looking like
in the gameplay trailer.
In the gameplay trailer, yeah. So it's looking like Fallout 76 is actually going to include the Brotherhood of Steel, which I think is a surprise for a lot of people, including myself, because as far as I knew, the Brotherhood of Steel wasn't even established until quite a long time after the period where Fallout 76 is taking place. But maybe you can correct me on that.
No, not like way off. So the Brotherhood of Steel, for the most part, was in its infancy forming at the 3 days before the nukes fell.
Oh, okay.
So in its infancy stage, there was a large garrison of soldiers guarding a secret American military base, and they discovered that the scientists there were subjecting prisoners of war and also prisoners of like local population, American citizen prisoners, like protesters and people, to experiments with the FEV virus, and were mutating them and turning them into monsters, and then proceeding to, of course, execute them as soon as they learned what they wanted to from them. The commander basically shot and killed all he ordered the execution, not like rampage. He rounded up the scientists and executed them, contacted the American government with a message that said basically like, look, we found out what you were doing. It was this is against every single possible rule of warfare, and we are done with you officially. Come get your base and file us for court martials, but we're going to drag this into the public eye, like all this kind of stuff. They never heard back from them because this was at the moment where the tensions just went from like, high to like, ultra high, and then the next 72 hours, Armageddon happened. So that's the story of the how those soldiers kind of cut themselves off from, and then as the apocalypse basically was happening, they gathered up their stuff and left that military base, because it wasn't a long-term sustainable base for like families and stuff, and they headed to a bunker that they knew would be able to sustain them for generations to come, basically. And
okay.
It was during that process, which immediately followed the war, immediately followed the reign of nukes, that they kind of identified who they were and set themselves up. Now there's this splinter group that had kind of separated from them, but this could be a group that, because there's no official lore about them going out to Virginia at such an early stage, but at the same moment, aside from the general, like, how they were formed and kind of what they did, what happened when they finally got to the bunker, basically from that point onward to the first Fallout game, there is very, very little recorded official lore. So we have no existing lore on expeditions to other parts of the country. We have no official lore on where they went, what they did, things that they might have done, operations that they may have started and failed, or started and succeeded. We only know information about their main kind of chapters that have been established in the game. So now we look at this. So here's this trailer comes out. I kind of saw it, and in the back of my mind was like, oh look, Brotherhood emblem. Obviously they're just reusing Fallout 4 stuff, because they're reusing a lot of Fallout 4 resources. So I thought, didn't really necessarily click. But then this article came out, And I thought, oh, hold on, yes, this is actually a really good point. So points to the person on Reddit who kind of brought this out forward, um, and the immediate reaction has been one of two things. Was one, oh, it's just Bethesda being lazy, and they forgot to they forgot to clean up all their resources. I don't know Bethesda to do that when it comes to their trailers and their gameplay and their official stuff that they put out. They're very careful with what they put out. Everything is checked with a fine-tooth comb and a magnifying glass before it heads out the door, especially on a big title like this where they're wanting to, really smash it out of the park. So the fact that this was framed in the way that it was framed leads me to believe basically you have a vertibird that's crashed, a these barricades set up, which is where the icon was seen on, and it got me thinking. I think that in the early days, once they got themselves established, got to the new government bunker, which would have had vertibirds there, that I think they sent out scouts to various parts of the country to figure out who was still alive, and more importantly, what vaults were still were operational. We know that Vault City opened up um, shortly after, well, not shortly after, but about 50 years, I think it was. That there were other control vaults, and I think that the Brotherhood possibly potentially would have made an effort to go out and establish communications with these groups, especially if they kind of had or knew of an idea of when they were opening. And this really, really important thing with Fallout 76. Fallout 76 was a very well-known project to all of America. The president talked about it on the news. It had multiple reporters writing up stories about it and content, as far as this is how it was used as a way to sell the idea of the vaults to the American people. It was used as a publicity stunt by the president at the time. All of these factors means that I believe what we're going to see is I really think we're going to see that they knew that 76 was going to be opening up around this time period. I think they sent an expeditionary force out there to try and meet up with the survivors to see if, some either technology or recruits could be made from it, because a lot of these people are still, the first, they're still American citizens. And so there would be, I mean, we're still talking that these are still a lot of the people in control are still, of the Brotherhood are still American soldiers. So I think they would have looked at this all and said, we need to make contact with this vault and see if we can either recruit or connect with these people, potentially. Now, years and years down the road, when, generations down the road where the vault is now very different population, then yeah, they look at them as they did in Fallout 1. They kind of looked at them as you're basically, these pack of nobodies.
Relics from an ancient time.
Yeah, so, but because it's a lot closer to the timeline, I think that, if in my experiences, if I were that military commander, I would have said, yes, we need to make contact with some of these vaults when they open up, because we need to figure out, who is still with us, or we need to get some of these valuable people. Like, there's going to be scientists and doctors that are still alive that may have access to research or technology that we don't have. I mean, you look at the vaults as we find them in the current world, and there's some that contain significant technology even after being closed for 200 years. So I believe that the generalized story that's going to happen here is that there's going to be this vertibird that's crashed, and they said there's no NPCs. So what I feel that's going to happen is, I think we're going to arrive at that location. We're going to see what we see there, and then we're going to contact the vault overseer who's giving us the quests. or maybe the Vault Overseer will contact us with this and say, hey, go here and investigate this. And then from there, that's going to lead into a chain story of lore where we track down this group, and maybe they're all dead, or maybe they've just left recordings for us, and then maybe
that makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because one thing that doesn't happen for sure is that they join up with the Brotherhood, because then the whole Eastern push with the Brotherhood 100 and some odd years later wouldn't have happened. But it's important to note that vertibirds are really fast, and vertibirds can travel from the west coast to the east coast in about 6.5 to 7 hours. So there is this prevailing idea that I think seriously needs to be, like, the world of the United States in the post-apocalyptic Fallout world is not as big as some people seem to think it is when you have access to some level of technology. Now, obviously, that's not the case universally, otherwise there'd be a lot more going on. But I think, especially in this early time period, I suspect strongly that we're going to be able to see or get some semblance of that as a general running concept. It's not what I would have done with the game. I would have added NPCs, and I suspect if the community is vocal about wanting to get more lore and wanting to get more story content and wanting to understand some of these things, like, there's a couple things I'm against. One of the big things that I'm against is the whole super mutant thing. I don't think that the super mutants should be in this time frame, because it's a little bit like, this is roughly ish when the master discovered Mariposa and started to experiment with that, but it's still way too early for there to be armies and dozens and hundreds of these things showing up. Now, can you get some level of mutation from the FEB being released to the local ecosystem? Yeah, you could maybe, but not to the level that, and certainly not the same bloody models. Like, it's just the same bloody models as the ones in number 4. So this is kind of one of the gripes that I have, is because they seem to be a little flippant with the lore here, and maybe this is, like, entirely going to be separated, and this is why they've chosen the time frame that they have, and they're basically saying that, you know, hey, yeah, we're just not going to do anything with the lore, period. You're not going to get any bit. But this is Bethesda, and I think that we will see some lore kind of set up. I don't think it'll really, or it may have a big impact in the future of Fallout games. We may, you know, set up or see some kind of a faction created by what we do in 76 that impacts games later on. But knowing how close they are to Washington, we don't see them in Fallout 3, and we don't see them in Fallout 4. So are they really that, you know, is it? Yeah. So it's one of these things where it's like, okay, well, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not 100%. But there is room. There's a ton of room for them. There's a government bunker that's not a Vault-Tec bunker in the lore that's in that area. So we may see a faction of, you know, American government factions, or like the directions that they can go with this are really, really huge, and I hope that they take advantage of it in a proper way, but I don't know. It's one of these things where it's like, it's kind of this is kind of like really up in the air right now. But I don't think what some people are saying is that this is just obviously just recycled content, or, you know, resources, and that this didn't matter, or it doesn't matter at all. I don't think that's
having a logo, Brotherhood logo, that close to a vertibird, it seems to me that's more than a coincidence.
That is planned structuring. Now, and the fact that they framed that in that particular way, it is actually kind of center of the screen. The characters that you see, you know, are proceeding towards it. this really screams that this is a planned, executed thing, and at the very least, we will get a little bit of written lore on this group of people that were sent out on basically maybe even almost a suicide mission to go out to this really far eastern state and to have a look around to see what was going on, and they crashed and they were never able to return. Or maybe it's a scouting group that's been scouting for years, and there's tons of information on local areas, and we discovered that the Brotherhood had been gathering information for 60, 70 years before they sent out their that group to go out east to take the capital wasteland. That's a generalized possibility. Seems a little bit much, but this is definitely fascinating, and I'm very interested to see where this goes.
This is awesome because this reminds me of our old school Fallout lore podcasts, which is kind of how this channel started. If anyone's new, we basically started doing podcasts about Fallout 4 and had tons of discussions like this. It was really awesome. I even go back and listen to them sometimes. It's really cool. If you have any questions about Fallout lore that you'd like Cyb to answer, I mean, please put those in the chat now. I mean, there's absolutely he's an absolute vault. Actually, no pun intended there. He's a vault of information about Fallout. So, absolutely check that out. I see we have. Oh, never mind. We love seeing the conversation so active in the live chat. If you want to keep the conversation going after the live broadcast, we welcome you to join our Discord community. You can find the link in the description below. It's a place where you can chat with us. You can chat with other Triple S fans about all the things we love to talk about. Meet people to game with. Stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Click the link below to join, and be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. Now, there's been some questions in the chat about when is the Fallout 76 beta going to be happening. Do we have any information on that?
So the information on the beta right now is that they've been gearing it up. They have sent out some emails to the pre-orders. I am suspecting quite strongly we will see the beta be announced in early August. And then I believe there's a very solid chance that we will see it come out near or at the end of August, almost 100%.
So announced in early August and then rolled out in late August. That's what somebody in the chat mentioned that as well.
Yeah, it's QuakeCon is on the 9th, and it ends on the 12th of August. Okay. So I believe 100% we will hear an announcement for the beta, and we may possibly see an on-the-floor beta being run at QuakeCon. This is very possible. It's not going to be. I don't think it's going to be an internet so that anybody can log in. But I think that people at QuakeCon may get their hands on 76 and be able to run around a small area of it. I am very, very positive on this. I am trying to get some more information on this, but QuakeCon is just around the corner, and we will almost for surely hear or see the announcement of when they are moving into the long term, 100%. So we will probably hear that they're gonna, it's gonna be setting up. We might hear, we might get a mic drop, and they might say the beta is starting up tonight, and then the beta goes live on the 9th or the 10th or the 11th or whenever they make that announcement during QuakeCon. That is highly likely as well, seen as how much they love to do mic drops. So, and considering that the emails for the beta went out about a week and a half ago, means that puts them at about a 3-week ready state to prepare to launch the beta. So if what happens is they say we're doing it tonight, the servers go live sometime on that probably the Friday night, I would imagine. Then people are going to be playing it all weekend long. These are going to be segmented betas, so expect to have a weekend, then it goes down, then it comes back up either the next weekend or the following weekend, then it goes down, then it'll probably wait another week or two, then it'll be up for a full week, then it'll go down again, and then about another week or two it'll probably pick up, and then it'll be probably live from that 2-3 weeks at a time, or straight up until launch. So that is how betas tend to work. That is the process in which you do it. The first weekend you have a stress test. The second weekend you've checked your stress testing systems and it seems to be working. It seems to be doing all right. Then you move into a dedicated week long where you're testing assets, you're testing drop ratios, you're testing grinding, all this other stuff. Then the next week after that, you're testing stability and stuff like that. Now, it would be pretty bad of them to do a stress test weekend or a login test weekend. I would be horrendous for them to do on the during QuakeCon, because that would potentially cause a lot of issues, because these things are full of bugs. So the chances of them putting this thing out and then them slamming into the wall because it's just a stress test weekend and getting a lot of bad press over it, that's highly likely. So while it is a good option, don't put money on it. Don't guarantee that it's going to pop out on the QuakeCon weekend. Like I said, it's probably 100% going to be announced at that, or you will hear something about it. 100% at this point. Put money on that, because it's highly unlikely that they're going to have this gigantic QuakeCon and then not mention anything about their games coming out in the future.
Obviously, there's going to be something about Fallout 76.
There's obviously going to be
the beta is one of the big questions about that.
Yeah.
Think we'll see anything else? You think we'll see new trailers, gameplay, anything like that?
There's a strong chance that we'll see gameplay, way more of it. I think we will probably get a chance to see character creation. It's one of those things where that's an easy multi-million view video or article if you put that out at the time when everybody's interested in asking about it. So that's highly likely. So yeah, so I would say yeah, don't necessarily assume that it's not going to be there. I think 100 at this point we can sit down and say, yeah, this is definitely going to be out, as far as being talked about here, as far as that gameplay, seeing that added gameplay, definitely going to see a way more ton of it, because they've already shown us quite a bit. And I think what we'll see is some scenarios play out. So the scourge beasts coming up out of the ground and us taking them on. I think that might be a way to see it come out, or we might see a group of 5 or more people team up to take this thing down. So yeah, and then somebody sets a nuke down on the people fighting the scourge beasts right as it's about to go down. They're like, we're winning, and then suddenly nuke incoming, and then kills everybody. I think honestly, I think that's probably a great way to showcase the whole process of it. So yeah, it's probably very highly likely, I would say, at this point.
We had an interesting we had a question on a comment on on the Fallout 76 video we put out this week. By the way, we put out a video called the top 5 things we think you should know about Fallout 76. If you haven't seen that, definitely check it out after the podcast is done. One of our regular viewers, fan of the channel, Darth Raver, asked on that video, are we excited for Fallout 76? Because he's not feeling certain about it. Are we excited for it? I'll let you go first there, Cyb.
I'm definitely excited for this game. There are, I continue to stress, there's couple big issues that I have with it. One is that there's no NPCs. This is the lore-wise that doesn't even fit. You can't have millions of raider gangs and all this lore and all this stuff happen if the entire population is completely wiped out and you're only refreshing the population with 1,000 people who are more interested in killing each other than reproducing, being popped out 25 years after the fact. And that's not the way it works either, because we know that all of the vast majority of the population in the Commonwealth in the Capital Wasteland, in the West, in the Mojave. Like all these people, the vast majority of them are people who survived the initial insanity, then began to reproduce, and then got fused with healthy fresh blood, so to speak, from these from the vaults. Vault 15, basically helped create the new California Republic, but they did not solely come out as the only people inhabiting the wasteland. They came out, they found survivors, they set up a city, they intermarried, and then a few generations later, because they had this infusal of good blood, and then they had the very first survivor from the vault came out in Fallout 1 and helped them there, helped Tandy do all this big lore heavy stuff. And then we know that in other parts of the world, you had this happen where natural survivors managed to group together in Los Angeles, City of Angels, not so much the Glow, but then you also had like ghoul/human community groups that formed. Big center story around that in Fallout 2. Then in Fallout 2 you also discovered Vault City, where they had while they were a lot of people that came out, they were pretty much all sterile, so they had to incorporate other people out from outside of the community to get there to the men were sterile, not so much the ladies, which was kind of weird, but whatever. So that this kind of stuff is quite clear, and I feel that it's disingenuous to the lore to say, well, here's this one area of the states where they have these scourge beasts and they got all these other kind of crazy monsters pop out everywhere, but all the humans died, even though as far as like sustainable levels of like how well a human community could live in that area, that's a bloody dream compared to pretty much everywhere else. Like, it really is one of the best locations we've ever seen for human society to flourish, or at least to recruit I'm saying that wrong, to increase their numbers, and we don't see any of that. Now, this is still fairly early on, like I said, 25 years after is pretty short, and there is a big open door for more lore, for them to add more lore in expansions and in updates and in content moving forward. And I really hope they do. I understand what they're going for with the 76 is trying to create a social world that combines like really old school MMOs without being a kind of like a current MMO. They're kind of going for this like Ultima Online, or the very early days of like really tiny servers in WoW, where you knew everybody on the server. Joe, Kim, Lacey, Jeffrey, all these people on the server, and you say, this guy has got this, that guy's got that, and I want to, I use assault rifles, and I know Jimmy just uses melee weapons only. So I'm going to ask Jimmy if he can sell me some AR ammo, because he always has some, because he doesn't really use guns that much, and I need it, and I've got tons of these other smaller bullets, so I'm going to sell him the smaller bullets. I'm going to buy all of the AR bullets from him, and then he's going to turn around and sell those energy cells and the smaller bullets over to other people who exclusively use those other things. So that's I think that's what they're trying to do, and kudos, because this is a very fun style of gameplay. It's something that I personally enjoy quite a bit. It's why I like MMOs in general, but I don't think that they really have the ability to do this in this new world of online games. And so this is I don't know. I keep coming back to the same thing. I would be a whole lot more set on the fact that this game is going to do well if it had NPCs, and if it had this branching story that hell, they could, spend a year and a half, 2 years to slowly keep adding new events and content to it till it pushes towards a climax, like you have in some of the MMOs. I've got to say that WoW has done that really, really well in Legion. The fact that they've managed to create this kind of thing, and I've just gotten back into it. Like I just started playing in the last like 2 weeks, just a little bit, just kind of see where the state of MMOs were. We're gonna have a kind of the state on it, because basically what happened with Bless is like Bless is like, I've been waiting for this game for a really long time, and we were speaking with the company back and forth, and then it kind of bombed so badly. But I still feel that MMOs are in one form or not, because you have MMO Lite, which is like Destiny, and then you got more heavy MMOs, and then you have more fringe MMOs, and it's like there's a lot of games now just have, like, I mean, you look at you might not call it or classify it as an MMO, but Red Dead Redemption and the Grand Theft Auto Online are essentially MMOs in the general thought, but they're not really recognized as that. So this is going to be really interesting to see where this kind of goes in the future. So we're definitely going to be talking about it. But one of these things is like the slow progressing content, where every couple months there's an update as far as like the story, and you're chasing the story, and then you finish what you can, and then you wait for the more stuff to come out. It's kind of like these story-based episodic games that they put out. I would like to have seen that, but I don't know how they can do that when there's no NPCs in the game, where there's no friendly towns or groups of survivors that you can build trust with, get to know, communicate with, and then you develop a relationship with. Now, and again, I know what Todd and Pete would say is like, no, you can do that with the people that you're playing with, and it's like, it just doesn't work that way, man. It just doesn't. It's like role players. It's like, yeah, you can have a great story role playing experience with people in an MMO, but like, the chances of it being like A, lore friendly, and B, coherent over several months is next to impossible. Let's be real. It's basically impossible.
And you got to find the right people too. But
yeah, and you have to find the right people.
I mean, it may wane.
You're gonna find that one guy who's role playing perfectly, and you're like, wow, this is really amazing. This guy should write for these guys. Oh my goodness, he's so great. Now he wants me to wait here while he walks into the building. Oh no, I feel like I'm gonna be attacked. Oh no, here he comes. He's coming out of the door. Oh no, I've totally walked into this scenario where I'm gonna get. Oh no, he's just wearing a bear costume. Yeah, he's a furry. Okay. Well, now this has gotten really weird, really, really fast. I kind of almost wish he was stabbing me in the gut right now, but instead, he's wearing a bear suit, and he wants to get overly friendly. Okay, well now I have to stab him in the gut. It's like,
is this a true story? Or did you just come up with this? I'm not sure which of those two options I'd be happier with.
Well, it's like this. It's like the scenario of what's happening, and that's the thing that's going to happen in the game. Yeah, there might be a small thing, but again, it doesn't really satisfy those of us who want an actual role-playing story narrative. And honestly, if they had added that and said, "Oh no, there is this single-player story that you're going to be able to play through, you're going to be able to see, you're going to be able to meet these people," I think if they had just included that, even on a small level, like, hire 20 voice actors, do a small minimum of story content that takes 2-3 hours to get through, and then you can go ahead and, nuke the everything that you want to. I think if they had done that, it would have been received a lot better, but I'm still excited for this game because, and this is the big thing, is like, we've created an amazing mod that's coming out very soon, that expands on the story content within the Fallout 4 universe. Really excited for you guys to get a chance to see this. We're really close. Probably, I don't want to give time frames because I messed up when we did that originally, like about a year and a half ago when we announced the thing originally. It's like, this is definitely going to be new, and this is definitely going to impress you if you are a lore fan. We worked really hard to make this content lore friendly, in the best ways that we possibly could.
Mm-hmm. And it's a full companion mod with story content.
Yes,
Sorry.
it's a full companion mod, but it's also expands on the actual lore and the actual game. We'll talk about that more later.
Cyber's involved, he basically wrote the mod, so you know it's going to be lore friendly.
It's going to be huge. We partnered up with Thuggy to do it, and this is going to be amazing. Now, knowing what we've done and created in Fallout 4, if we get the same tools in 76, we will create. Not we as in us, like we the gaming community will create an endless wave of story content ourselves, and you'll just be able to pick your favorites and then be able to play through those favorites with your friends. So that's great. That is 100% really awesome. We're really stoked. We're really excited to see that. And I just want to quickly throw out, while we're on this topic of mods, Pete and Bethesda came out recently with Project California, New California Republic mod that this guy's been working on for like 2-3 years. A board game had come out with this that was basically named the same thing, and he was afraid that they were going to get a cease and desist letter saying, hey, you're no longer allowed to work on this mod. It contains content that we're working on ourselves. So, GTFO and, 3 years of your life are now down the drain. What Pete Hines did is he came out and he said, oh no, he's cool. We're fine. We're really looking forward to seeing what he's created, because we know he's put a lot of time in it and his mods are great. It's like,
that's awesome.
Wow. So we sent a tweet to Pete Hines saying, you guys don't deserve enough praise for how you guys approach modding. The fact that the community can mod anything from flying trains to talking mushrooms. Actually, that might all be coming from the same sources. To mods that increase realism, like the survival mods that are out there for both Skyrim and Fallout, to mods of a more red light district sense, to literally anything is the point. That's amazing. And that just like hey, we're not going to mess around with this. You guys go ahead and do what you want. Ultimate free speech, so to speak. So yeah.
Right, and I mean, they know that clamping down on it wouldn't work anyway, but they've chosen to embrace it, which is really good. It's really good for the community. It's really good for that. It's that public perception of the company that I talked about earlier. Bethesda is a company that they have their flaws. They've been known to put out games that have a bug here or there. A few bugs but then Todd Howard can go out on stage and laugh about it and make a joke about it, and everyone loves that, and everyone still goes crazy for the announcement for Elder Scrolls 6, even knowing it's going to be buggy as hell at launch, just because that's the track record. But then the bugs get fixed and we all enjoy playing the game. So I really like that Bethesda company that, in my opinion, has a very good public perception, a lot of trust. They've had some hiccups along the way, but I think that trust in them is there. And I'd like to close up with some comments here from the chat about Fallout 76. Barton File says, regardless of what Bethesda gets wrong with Fallout 76, which they will get a lot wrong with this admitted experiment, it is still a Fallout map 4 times larger than the biggest Fallout map to date that we get to explore with our friends. That is why I'm excited. And that's very true. There's going to be just a huge environment to explore, lots of awesome monsters, lots of things to discover, I'm sure. And, the story, I'm excited for what Mr. Gardner was saying about the story being told through objects, through terminals, through sound recordings, that kind of a thing. Those were some of my favorite quests and some of my favorite discoveries while playing previous Fallout games. And so to have a lot of that, that's going to be really awesome, in my opinion. That's some of my favorite stuff.
It will be. I'm still my only minor gripe with where they've taken the game in the previous 3 titles is that they've fast forwarded so far into the apocalypse that it's like well, 500 years after an apocalypse, you shouldn't really have like, I mean, humanity should have recovered at that point. It's like do you know what happens when you get you get 100 people in a room, 50-50 male female, and they each have 4 kids, and out of those 4 kids, averaging things out, including like death cycles and all that kind of stuff.
Wait, this all happens in one room?
No, not one room. In one place, you get 100 people to have 4 kids each, and then those 4 kids have 4 kids each, and then those kids have 4 kids each. It does not take you 900 years to repopulate the planet. It takes you about 4 generations to populate a large area, and then it takes you like less time to populate the planet shortly after that. It's like it's not like exponential growth is exponential. I don't know if you guys know this, but exponential growth actually literally means exponential growth. It's amazing how that can happen. It's amazing how many humans we've been able to create, because like not even 100 years ago did we have anywhere close to what we have right now. And if we if we're smart and we build things like the Exceeds 4000s and we do things that are legendarily, it's like the human population could span like we could theoretically like hit like 100 200 million or 200 billion before we have to actually worry, and by that time, I mean, hopefully we can move off planet. But still, it's like yeah, there's some there's some issues that I have with that going so far into the future. But honestly, it's like I'm really happy with where the Fallout games are, considering what's happened to other reboots. You look at Jagged Alliance. Like Jagged Alliance is another one of my absolute fan favorite games, around the same time that Fallout 2 came out. Brilliant game. Got resurrected, absolute trash. Like not even close to keeping with the spirit of the previous games. Like just absolute trash. So there is definitely different ways that people can handle reboots, and I'm for the most part very happy with Bethesda. I feel that there's a few more things that they could be doing, and I hope that they now have the time and energy to do, but we'll see. So
And Megan's got a comment here. Whatever 76 turns out to be, I respect Bethesda for trying something different. I think it will definitely be interesting, regardless of any flaws it will have. I agree. And so, in answer to Darth Raver's question, if he's listening, I haven't seen him live in the chat, but if you're listening after the fact, and for anyone else who is curious, we are, well, Saib gave his answer. Myself, I'm very excited for more Fallout content in terms of the lore, the exploration, the just being in the Fallout world again. I'm super stoked for that. As I'm a little more hesitant with the multiplayer aspects of the game, because I tend not to enjoy MMO style gaming as much, but we'll see. I mean, going in there with friends and messing around in the Fallout world, that sounds awesome. So I am excited for it in that sense. I'm keeping my eye on some of the things that Bethesda's been talking about, like the anti-griefing features. I want to know more about that. I want to know more about how the world is going to operate, and how it's going to work on a technical level, and we'll see. I think it's going to be a good time though, regardless. So, did you have anything? Did you have anything else you wanted to discuss with regard to that, Saib?
No, about that topic that's about good.
Okay, well, I think we've basically covered everything. So I guess we can wrap it up here. But thank you everybody so much for supporting this show, for the great conversation in the chat. I want to thank especially our Patreon supporters, Old Man Manson, who I saw in the chat earlier. If you're still listening, thank you so much for being a patron. Jeranon and our 2 anonymous Patreon supporters, thank you so much for being there and helping us do what we do. Don't forget to like and sub if you appreciate this weekly content, and if you're listening after the fact on SoundCloud, we thank you for your follows and likes. On iTunes, thank you for subscribing and reviewing the show. And hey, feel free to join us next Saturday, 8 a.m. Pacific Time, 11 a.m. Eastern Time for the live show, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more fun gaming content. My name is Ashton Inity, and on behalf of Cybsidian, thank you so much for listening. We will talk to you next week.